Hey guys, I'm Mike, and I'm an artist who's on an ever-ending quest to get better, and hopefully you are too. With that in mind, I'm always creating little challenges and exercises for myself to try and improve. I've spent enough time but sort of painting from life and doing all the things that you would normally do. I try and think outside the box to do things that make me more uncomfortable than I'd like to be, because I find that that's the easiest path, the quickest path to really improving your skill set. Now, this exercise, it doesn't matter what type of art you do. I mean, it needs to be two-dimensional art, but it can be digital, it can be traditional, it can be watercolor, oil paint, finger paint. It doesn't matter. This is not based on some confined tool set. Photoshop, Manga Studio like I'm working in, iPad, whatever, Procreate, is that what it's called? Doesn't matter. But what I want you to do, and what you're looking at here, is I went and got a sketch from an artist that I like, whose style that I like, and who's different than me. This is a sketch done by Esad Ribic. It's just a sketchbook sketch, and to my knowledge, he never painted it. I never saw a painting sort of this pencil sketch. So find someone whose work you truly revere and you think that you can learn something from. In this case, I like Esad Ribic's Frazetta-ness. Frank Frazetta, the great fantasy illustrator. There's a lot of elements of that in Esad Ribic's work that I really appreciate. This sort of darkness and realism that I find difficult to capture in my style. My style tends to be more saturated and certainly more furious and filled with lines and medium, but that doesn't matter. There's still a certain beauty and realism that I think I can learn from this guy. So I went and I got this sketch. And look, this could be abstract art, it could be a portrait, it could be anything, but just get a sketch from an artist whose style has a big body of work. You could go to the Met Archives and find an art book with, let's say you're a watercolorist, and find John Singer Sargent. And there's a million John Singer Sargent sketches that he doesn't have watercolor paintings for. And then go ahead and sketch that sketch, and then paint as if you were him, as much of that as you want. If you want to take more elements. Now I've kind of done a hybrid here. I took some of my thoughts on color and transformation and rendering, and then I borrowed some parts from Esad Ribic and even a little from Frank Frazetta, which I just assume he has to be a huge fan of. And I created this. Now, this is traditional art. This is just a scan. I did it on an 11x17 artboard, and I incorporated some of my palette knife painting, and I changed his leg position, and I added hair, and I changed the hand position a little bit. And it's okay if you aren't, like, I'm a painter. So if you're just a let's say you're a comic book colorist and you might not have that robust of a skill set yet. Let me show you what you can do here digitally. What I don't want you to do is take the sketch into Photoshop. You could certainly, if you can't sketch it out, that's fine. But don't just take the sketch into Photoshop and then paint underneath the lines. As if you were doing I'm using a comic book example, but you could do this with sort of any kind of painting, right? Don't just paint underneath the lines and then get in there and start rendering and flat and do all that. Don't do that. That's not going to benefit you. But even if you have a limited skill set, you will learn an incredible amount, even if it doesn't turn out great. If instead of painting under the lines with no opacity, go in and create yourself a sort of unrendered sketch like this. And then maybe you learn, but that's darker over there. The Hulk gets greener and darker, and see, even with just a few strokes and I know I move fast with the color choices, and a few color choices, you can start to create a rendering, and you'll learn so much about light. And in this case, you'll learn about that the Hulk is really mostly yellow, but I really, really had fun with this, and I'm super happy with the way this turned out, because it's still very much a painting that is identifiably me, but especially in the legs, this doesn't look like anything but one of my paintings. And the Hulk, I sort of brought in some some elements and some very tiny brushwork. This was done on an 11 by 17 artboard, just a regular crappy Strathmore 3-ply Bristol board. I guess not crappy, but it's not 410 GSM super nice paper. It's plate finished, it's smooth, and I used for this, it's pencil on the bottom, and then most of the color is acrylic gouache over regular gouache. And I know that seems weird, but when you put the acrylic gouache over the regular gouache, the acrylic gouache, when it dries, it turns into plastic. And so you can put regular gouache down first, so you can get you can just get little mixes as you're doing your first pass. It's layered. His hair, and then there's a bunch of colored pencil and some ink and stuff on top. I just dropped my stylus. And then the background is regular acrylic paint that I applied with a palette knife. So it doesn't matter your genre of art or what. You can really, really learn a lot about where you're at as an artist and just little things that other artists do. For example, pay attention to the way other people render anatomy. Now, this is exaggerated comic book anatomy, but it's, comic book guys are really, really, really strong at drawing the figure in deep space. Maybe better than anyone on Earth, because that's all they do, essentially. And these little things, where the muscle attachments are. The Hulk is anatomically a perfectly formed human. He's just enormous. Humans wouldn't have the same traps as him, and even Arnold in his day didn't have a chest this big. But it's just exaggerated proportions. It's not like fantasy art where you're creating alien characters. So, anyways, I'm just trying to give a little credibility to comic art, but you don't have to do it with a comic book. So I hope you find some use of this, and please send me your examples. You can follow me on Instagram, and all my stuff is below. I post art every day. No politics, no social commentary. It's just art, and my Etsy shop and stuff are down below. But I hope you get the same kind of benefit I did out of this. Happy to answer questions. Take care, guys.